Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order. We are the City Council's Finance Subcommittee. My name is Joe McGiverin. I serve as chair of this committee, and on my left is Jim Leahy, City Councilor at Large. On my immediate right is Mike Sullivan, City Councilor at Large, followed by Peter Tallman, City Councilor at Large. Our other member, Todd McGee, is also the President of City Council, will be joining us shortly. In the audience, we have City Councilor Dave Bartley, Ward 3, City Councilor Terry Murphy, Ward 2, and City Councilor Linda Bacon, Ward 5, and we appreciate everybody's presence. There's a few items we can go through very quickly, and there are two main items this evening. If I could just indulge the committee to start with item number 1, which is an order filed by Councilor Bartley that the mayor forward any contacts between the City of Holyoke and any consultants that were initiated in fiscal year 2019. The contract should include any agreements between the City of Holyoke and any former city employees. Motion to take it off the table for discussion.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Councilor Bartley and I were just discussing, and our administrative assistant, that we received this order, Dave, I think it was on April 2nd, and received and adopted by the City Council, referred to Committee on Finance with a copy to the Mayor's Department looking for information. It's been well over a month that we've been waiting for this information to be provided. There is an email thread going back and forth between our assistant, Councilor Bartley, and the mayors. I've reached out myself. To date, we've been told that the information will be provided, but to my knowledge, it has not yet been provided. Is that correct, Mr. Ryan? Yes, it is. Okay. David, barring someone showing up in the next half hour or so, I would look to you to see, or if you'd like to say something, please.
No, it won't be positive, so why don't we just keep it, why don't we keep it on the table? Just an example, though, of, so the mayor got this, as you know, all orders have to go to the mayor's office, so he had it over a month ago. But I made sure I followed up, and I sent him when the agenda came out that we're taking this out this week. I sent them an email last week. He acknowledged it right away. I copied the finance chair and the administrative assistant on it. I mean, this is not hard. So I don't want to name any names right now, but I made it clear in my email to the mayor. I said, Mayor, I was led to under the impression that certain former employee or employees have been given personal contracts by you. If I'm wrong, just acknowledge that I'm wrong, and we'll just give a leave to withdraw. If I'm right, just give the contract. He said, we'll provide it. Okay. So it's not being provided. I mean, I mean, you tell me, Joe. What are we supposed to do? Do we just table this to the next finance?
Well, I appreciate that, and I think we should table it, and we'll definitely. I will follow up myself at this point. It seems like. Well, why don't we let it settle at that, and let's see what's going on, because the information it's public information if there are any contracts out there, and they should readily have been provided to us. Could I suspend the rules? Our law department is represented, not for this evening, but Tasha, do you know of any contracts that exist? Does the law department keep all these contracts on file, or am I looking to contact the city clerk?
You should contact the city clerk.
Okay.
The law department doesn't maintain all of the city contracts.
Gotcha.
Can I ask you a question too?
Councilor Aegis has a quick question, and Councilor Sullivan.
On Councilor Bartley's order too, I have filed
Put your mic on, Jim.
something, I think Councilor
Jim.
McGee filed an order.
Jim, can you put your mic on?
Tosh, can you use the mic?
Jim, is yours on?
Yeah, because if I didn't say it, we are being broadcast live, right, Ryan? Yes. And certainly for our viewing audience, we want everyone to hear what's said.
Yes, so a long time ago myself, that I think I filed the order again with Councilor McGee to have the city's debit card statements forward to us. That still hasn't happened yet. So is that through your department? Okay, thank you.
One more, Tasha. We're going to put you to work tonight.
Just regarding the contracts, wouldn't Wouldn't any contract signed by the city have to be available in the purchasing department or go through purchasing?
I think so. I think it would depend on, the type of contract. I don't, handle all of our contracts. I handle contracts. As far as the particular purchasing contracts, that would be Harrow, and I can, if you have a particular contract that you're looking for, I can look into that.
Well, you know, pursuant to the order, is this something we could also copy to purchasing to, if it's not forthcoming from the mayor?
I don't think that would hurt, so we could, and we should ask the purchasing and ask the law department. I didn't even think of the law department, but I think I'm not really sure why the law department, Mr. Chair, wouldn't be reviewing all contracts. But I thought I heard the assistant solicitor say that maybe all contracts aren't, say that again, Miss Solicitor? What is your department's role in city contracts?
Another attorney assistant solicitor Carol, she reviews all contracts that go through purchasing. So if you're looking for a particular contract, I can ask her to provide you with that contract.
So I think that would make sense if the committee make a motion to refer this to the law department. And so the order's on record, so you can see what the order is. So I'm not looking for every single contract, but I didn't want to name particular names in the public because I'm not 100% sure I'm right. So it would be, unfair to the person or persons that may have been former city employees that are getting contracts through the mayor's office. I didn't want to do that. So that's why I quietly just sent an email, but I made sure I copied the finance chair and the administrative assistant, so he put some kind of record that I did ask the mayor. The mayor acknowledged it, and I said in the email, I said, if I'm wrong, just tell me I'm wrong. But now that we can't provide even the simplest thing, let's at least consider, the committee consider recommending that we refer this to the purchasing department and to the law department, and maybe if the finance chair can schedule for, maybe the next maybe not the next meeting, maybe a month from now, maybe I'll have enough time to respond.
Okay, Counselor Tomlin?
I was just going to make a motion to table it and send a copy to the law department and the purchasing department.
Okay, so the motion is to refer a copy of this with a request to both the law department and the purchasing department, and to lay the item on the table for a future meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Item 2 is an order introduced by Council President of the DPW Tax Collector or Treasurer report if the city is receiving any tipping fees from the trash station on Main Street, what, if any, has been collected so far, and where is it going? We did receive a communication. This was originally received on April 2nd at the full City Council meeting, and on May 8th, we did receive a communication from Mike McManus, the General Superintendent of the DPW. He goes back, actually it shows all the community host tipping fees that have been received back to 2015 by quarter, 4 quarters per year. Looks and appears that this is through the fourth quarter of 2018. It looks and appears as if each year the tipping fees have increased slightly. Council President did notify me that he cannot make the meeting this evening. He was just looking for the answers. He didn't have any questions at the moment, but he just wanted to get the information in front of us. So the chair will open up for any discussion if there is any.
Want to make a motion, it's been complied with?
Joe,
Councilor Tomlin?
I just received this today. I got it in an email, but it does look as though they were increased most years, but the first quarter of 2018, it seems like it went down about $9,000 from the last quarter of 2017. So I mean, I just like to find out why. Was there a reason? Quite a drop of $9,000 when it was going pretty much up $1,000 or $2,000 every year. If anybody has an answer.
I have an answer.
Okay.
If you look at their 4-year history, the first quarter is the weakest quarter each year. So that would be January, February, and March. Yeah, probably just, less garage cleanings going on or basement cleanings.
Yeah, I'm Look at, from 2016 to 17, it only went down less than 2,000, and this time it went down 9,000. That's why it sort of stood out at me. But maybe I can follow up with Mike. You know, when you're collecting $20,000, you know, no matter, and I understand the first quarter is probably a lighter time, but that's quite a drop. That's, I don't know, 30-something% drop in revenue. So just something that maybe I'll follow up with Mike on.
That's a good observation. I think a reasonable answer by Counselor Sullivan, but why don't we, if you find something different, Counselor Tomlin, or if you wish, we can have Ryan or myself follow up, but, you know, just to make sure that there's not something going on that we're missing. So I think it might have something to do with the season too and the holidays, but who knows? Any other discussion?
Yeah,
Counselor Murphy?
I mean, I know I had a meeting in South Holyoke because there's gonna be discussion coming at some point. They want to do some additional work down there that could increase tipping fees and bring in other trash that they can dispose of and recycle rather than wastewater treatment plant. And one of the indications was that they might be able to get higher tipping fees, but it was not in black and white by any means, but I know it was part of the discussion, and I think we're talking about that later this summer, early this fall.
There is. There's also a company that's looking at the old incinerator in some property. I'm not sure if that's what you're referring to, but that is progressing, and hopefully, it sounds like it'd be a great operation with a legitimate company coming in, but it's still early to tell if it's going to come to fruition. Any other discussion? Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion that the item has been complied with.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Item 3 is also introduced by Councilor Bresnahan, that the tax collector report to the city council to find out exactly, or to their best estimate, what the city is getting in tax revenue from the marijuana industry here in the city. Motion to take off the table for discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Once again, this is Councilor Bresnahan's order. He's looking for information. We did receive, this was, Ryan, correct me, I don't want to, if I remember what you told me, the email went to the tax collector, and it actually made more sense. The tax collector asked that we would direct it towards the assessors, or at least let the assessors weigh in on it as to what the actual revenue and expectations is. We did receive a communication today from Tony DeLude and Debbie Burnell, and I haven't had a chance to go over it, but I think everybody's got a copy. Councilor Bacon, you have a copy? There's a... And as far as, well, I haven't had a chance to go over it, so I'm going to stop there if anybody has any questions or any thoughts. Ryan, was there anything besides this package that was delivered? No. Because, I mean, this is just an explanation of what we're going to receive. I don't see any indication of what has been received, or I guess if you read the wording, it's an estimate of what we're going to receive. So that part of the order has been complied with, but perhaps it's too early for the host community monies to be coming in. I mean, I think we already know the numbers and the percentages, but Councilor Bacon, does this look familiar? No.
Maybe you make a motion to table it?
Motion has been made
Second.
and seconded to table it. I think this is half of what Councilor Bresnahan and what we as a council adopted was looking for, and perhaps in the first go around when money starts coming in, we can get the the other half of the answer as to what monies, are actually coming in based on the host fee of the 3% and what we're anticipating. On that motion to table, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Item 4 is an order, it came in under my name, that thereby and hereby is appropriated by transfer fiscal year 2019 from other contracted services, $500 to pay overtime, $500.
Motion to take off the table for discussion.
Motion made, second to take off the table for discussion. This is from the building department. After speaking with Mr. Cody, I did tell him he would have had a difficult time getting here this evening, that I would offer the explanation. If there's no questions, we could offer it up to the full city council in 2 weeks. Twice this year, and it's very unusual that the building department spends overtime. The reason the building department doesn't use a lot of overtime is the building inspector, Mr. Cody, doesn't get overtime, and he tries to answer any emergency call or any call that is required a sign-off by the building department itself. Twice this year, one I actually was somewhat involved with, but twice this year, another per diem inspector had to be sent out. One was for a local restaurant that had a appliance problem, and a gas appliance problem, which was being worked on by a contractor, which is not the issue. The issue was gas was smelt at some point when the contractor wasn't there. The fire department became involved and shut the service off. The service being shut off required the local inspector to come in, and once the work was done, to okay it. Not the appliance, but to okay that it could be turned back on. That took place. The individual, because Mr. Cody was not available, went in and gets paid 4 hours of overtime. The second individual, and Mr. Cody said he's taking care of this, but the fire department called, instead of calling directly to Damien, they called to the inspector. I'm not sure if it was electrical or plumbing or which one it was, but it had that inspector come in, and that person therefore gets, under the union contract, gets to 4 hours.
Well, so can I ask a question? 'Cause
Sure.
I know to abstain, but for the reason when my father is the acting electrical inspection, but he's not union.
If he,
So I'll let
why don't you abstain just in case? And I'll find out before the next meeting if it was your father as the acting inspector.
I don't know
'Cause
if it
he's-
was, but
Yeah, I don't think it was electrical. I think it was either plumbing or gas that went out, which would have been either Kevin or the other inspector that they bring in from East Hampton. But we'll find that out. But why don't you, to be safe, just abstain. Are there any questions or any discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Tillman?
On the other contracted services, so that money, is that an account that wasn't expended in the past?
That's
Good
correct.
months, yeah.
There's Mr. Cody told me there's a surplus in that account at the moment, and he just wants to it's actually the same account that he uses for whenever there is, because he has 2 positions that are not filled full-time, when he brings in Mr. Leahy or when he brings in the other inspector from East Hampton, he has to use this account to pay for the services as they go. So it's legitimate to use from that account. It appears that he, barring any unforeseen problems between now and July 1st, he should be okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Chair will entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the transfer from other contracted services to overtime.
Second.
All those in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? So moved. And with Counselor Leahy abstaining, and we'll get an answer on who did the actual overtime work.
Make a motion to take up item number 5 off the table for discussion.
Item number 5 is an order under my name that there being hereby is appropriated by transfer fiscal year 2019, $3,547.77 from Assistant Library Director to Library Assistant. A motion to take up for discussion. All those in favor? Any opposed? So moved. Excuse me. I believe everybody's gotten an email. If not, I'll just handle it quickly for those listening. Is our library director had a death in her family. She is in a a bereavement week of which a number of things are going on, and she actually asked to be excused, and I think there, under Maria's term, there was, certainly the circumstances are understandable, and I'm just happy she notified us. But she did take the time to send in an email, an explanation of this. It sounds reasonable, but we can wait if we have questions, but let me just go over the explanation real quick. The Assistant Library Director, during the course of the fiscal year, left the position. The position has been left vacant since then. Both these positions provide customer service during the open hours of the library. She used the library assistance line items and the library assistants, who are paid per diem, to cover the extra hours that were taken up by the Assistant Library Director. The library assistant line item is running out of money. She would not have enough to get through the end of the fiscal year. This would cover that line item. And she is in the process of addressing next year with the mayor through the budget process itself. So that's the explanation. I believe it's reasonable, but the chair opened up for discussion. Councilor Tomlin?
Yeah, Joe, thanks. And I did get a chance to read the emails, very well written. But I don't see a problem with this transfer. The only concern I really had was that I think in the future, I think she mentioned about the might have to hire more people. And I know that the library is a lot bigger now, and it probably needs more people. But I'm just concerned. She did state that hopefully we can have her in the budget time, but that it may be more money needed, and that she sounded like she wanted support for the budget when it comes out. But I'm just a little concerned about the future costs of the library, not this one actually, but how much it's going to cost if they have to have more hours or more help needed, because it seems like the library is doing great and has a lot of work, but with the expansion and the addition and everything, it seems like they need more people to sort of run things there. And I think that's basically what she said in the email about the future of the with the next fiscal year. But actually, I don't have a problem with this. The money is there. It's to pay the employees that sort of stepped up. But I'm just looking forward to hearing her thoughts on that, and hopefully we can have her come in during budget time.
I think that's a good point. I would suggest we proceed with getting the money to help her through the end of the fiscal year. And during the budget process, I think we should maybe invite her in and other commissioners in the library and have a frank discussion about next year, and to fully understand, not knowing what the mayor is going to do at this point, but to fully understand that's an important part of what they provide, and we want it to be cost efficient, but at the same time, those hours covered, because a lot of things go on in our libraries that need customer service, as they call it, need oversight. Any other discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve the transfer from Assistant Library Director to Library Assistant.
Motion made and seconded. If there's no other discussion, all those in favor? Any opposed? So moved. We have the two items, as I said earlier, that are the meat of the discussion. I see our former mayor, along with her fellow commissioner, Mimi Panich, and Mike Sullivan are here to discuss item 6, which is an order for a CPA proposal grant in the amount of $120,000. Marcus Marrero told me he will be here between 7 and 7:15. Could we beg off and just skip this for a minute and wait for Marcus? Okay? Is that okay? Okay, so we can hop over and see if we can take care of item 7.
Make a motion to take up item number 7 off the table for discussion.
Second.
Motion made a second to take item 7 off for discussion. Item 7 came in under my name. It's been here with us for a while. This is the second or third time we brought it up for discussion. We've also sent it back to the full city council once, and it was referred back for further discussion. This is an item, a transfer from stabilization of $518,948.41 from stabilization into litigation. The same amount of money. The motion is to receive, take up for discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have our law department well represented by Tasha Marshall, right? And Attorney Marshall is here. She's the one that has been handling this agreement. It's known that the city council, for litigation that is pending, has, whenever necessary or whenever appropriate, we do executive sessions to be updated on litigation in order not tip the hand of the city law department or the mayor in their negotiations or in their litigations of anything. This particular one, I'm going to stop there and ask Tasha if she wants to address it. I will remind everyone, and I'm sure anybody here may have some questions, but that 2 meetings ago at the full city council meeting, I did ask everyone if they had not received answers from any questions asked, or if they had any new questions, that they would forward it to myself, to the law departments, or to the presidents. I've received no new questions or no new indication that we're still waiting for answers. I'm sure there is still some discussion, Tasha, but at the same time, that's where we are. There is some timelines that are coming up, and that's why I just want to preference our goal is whether we're in favor of this or against it. There's always an issue when stabilization money is used, but whether we're against settling or in favor of settling, it's something that is that we need to get to the city council to at least let the full city council take a final vote. So with that in mind, why don't we invite Tasha up for a bit? Tasha, you want to come in? Wherever you're comfortable. You know, Dennis took your favorite seat over there, you know? You can just pull that down or sit right there. It doesn't, you know.
Thank you.
Welcome. And if
Thank
you could
you.
just, Councilor Leahy has made a point, both in executive session, but a point on any litigation is, are we talking about a number? How far are we going to talk about what this is about this evening? And if we are talking about a number, is it something that the mayor has settled? Because only the mayor can settle any suit, any litigation within the city of Holyoke. He can do it through the agents of the law department, and it's all subject to appropriation. So with that in mind, however you feel comfortable, can you get us to a point where we can get something to the full city council?
Yes. So just to reiterate, the request is to settle a lawsuit. The amount in question includes a part that the city will contribute, as well as a part that the insurance company will contribute, as well as the attorney's fees in the case. This amount is for 2 lawsuits. One lawsuit is the city was sued, something involving the school department, and then the other lawsuit was triggered by the first lawsuit where the insurance company is suing the city to not pay for coverage. So if we are able to settle this case for this amount, both of these lawsuits will be settled. Does anyone have any other questions?
Councilor Leahy?
Yeah, thank you, and I appreciate it. As I always say, I normally say it around budget time, is I always, for the last many years, I've always asked people to cut the line item for settling these cases, settling any cases, because what I found is it's a check and balance. So if there's not a lot of money in that line item, the law department, and this is long before you, and all my remarks are long before you, and quite frankly, other people, since we have such a new law department, I mean, I'm not even sure if I know the names of everybody, which is a concern. However, I like knowing the checks and balances. I know exactly what we're in front of, so we can stay on top of things. Long when I started, we'd fully fund it, and then halfway through the year, we're asked for more money because the law department settled all these cases, and the city council had no idea what was really going on. And so I like this approach. What I don't like, though, is talking kind of like there's an elephant in the room and we're not allowed to talk about it. The last time we discussed this in the open air, I got a lot of calls, a lot of people asking me exactly, what's this going on? Who's getting sued? Why are we getting sued? And I couldn't say anything. So the fact that if I'm going to be asked to vote to move $518,000 or north of $518,000 from the stabilization fund into the litigation fund, and I can't tell my constituents out on the street why I voted for that, I think that's just wrong, and I think that I'm not doing my due diligence doing that. So I'm not going to vote for this tonight. Thank you.
Counselor Sullivan?
Yep.
Bill?
Myself, I don't like just settling lawsuits. In this case, having heard everything we did here, it just appears to me that we could win this case and spend more money than the settlement by winning, which it just goes against my nature, but fiscally it seems a prudent thing to do. It's, bird in the bush is worth two in the hands. And on the flip side, there is always the possibility we could lose it, which also would cost us far in excess of this. So to me, we have two very compelling reasons, regardless of the circumstance, to settle it. It appears that we're in a tough situation, and this is the most prudent fiscal approach to it. So I will be voting for it.
Counselor Bartley?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, did we, and I'm sorry if I missed it, but did we get an opinion from bond counsel on removing funds from stabilization to settle a lawsuit? I think I raised this with you. I wasn't at the city council meeting, the last one in April, because I was with my, I was predisposed with my parents. But at a prior meeting, I did ask you to reach out to bond. And I know she was here, and I attended that meeting, but that was really, I didn't want to ask at that time, Mr. Chairman, because it was off topic, and I felt, I didn't felt it feels appropriate. But I was wondering if the chair had, and if the chair has not, that's okay. But because we have a few weeks before our next, depending what you do with it tonight, I assume you're going to move it out of this committee and move it to full city council. But I would like to get something from bond counsel as to its opinion as to whether this is an appropriate transaction from the stabilization account, and furthermore, what effect, if any. Then I would just say, in general, that settling lawsuits is certainly a part of any litigation, and it's a hard call for anybody. My issues are this is not a lawsuit on the city side of the government. This is a lawsuit solely on the Holyoke Public Schools, solely. Nothing to do with the city side of government. So I understand the city, that the Holyoke Public Schools is coming up with a fraction of the settlement. This only, and it's good for the public to know, this represents but a fraction of the settlement. This is not the whole settlement. It's well north of this. But that hasn't been disclosed yet on any written agenda. So that's a problem. It's also a problem to me that the Holyoke Public Schools isn't pulling even the majority of the money to settle this matter. I think that's a problem as well. And by the way, they're funded just as well, if not more. I don't know what I'll defer to the finance chair but it's basically half. So in the $130 million budget, half city, half schools. So, I mean, and then to take it from stabilization, when the receiver and the mayor and the law department knew this was coming for, I want to say this was initiated, and I'll defer. Attorney Marshall, when was this case initiated?
2016.
Thank you. So we've known it now, let's say 2 going on 3 years. What has the mayor done, what has the receiver done to budget for this? I'll ask Councilor Sullivan, Councilor Tallman, Councilor Leahy, Councilor McGiverin. What have they done to budget for this? I would ask yourselves that question. I think the short answer is you know it. You know the answer. You know the answer is nothing. And yet you knew this was lingering out there. But now, let's throw the Hail Mary. Oh, City Council, we've got this $14 million stabilization. It's just sitting there. Why can't we use that? And the mayor's argument is always, well, we make $500,000 in interest every year. Let's just use that. That's not what bond council wants to hear, I can assure you. We know the answer from bond council. We already know it before we get it. They're not going to like this, and they're going to ding us. So, yeah, go ahead. Do the mayor a favor and pull the bacon out of the fire. But you've got to ask the hard question next time, whether this passes or not. Are you going to budget for this stuff or not? Instead of coming back to city council, we're always the bad guys and gals, having to take these impossible votes. It's not fair. What is fair is ask them to budget for this. Have a reserve account. Councilor Sullivan, you're very familiar. Have a reserve account. You've done enough budgeting in your career, but it doesn't happen. It just goes to, stuff comes in for, ancillary funds, Casella. Add that up, whatever that comes out to, probably $300,000 right there. Goes into the general fund. Poof. But the mayor knew this was coming. You had to know it. You had to know that early stages of litigation, you know whether this is a loser or not. This case was a loser from the start for what happened. And we're still waiting for, Mr. DA, he got a headline, I'm going to investigate that. This is a new DA, not the old one. I'm going to investigate. I'm still waiting for that report to come out. What a joke that was. So I would just say, just to my friend, the finance chair, it would just be nice if we could get some kind of indication from bond counsel anyhow. At least if she said, by a miracle, at least if she said, with this amount, counselors, maybe the reaction would be, softer than what we think. We've got to get something from her on this, Mr. Chairman, preferably in writing prior to the vote. So at least we can put on the record. At least we'll all be aware of what's going to be, what's going to be coming subsequent to a vote, whether we pass this or not. Again, this is not on the law department. It's not on any of us here. This is solely on Holyoke Public Schools, and whatever happened at Peck Junior High, whatever happened, happened. And it's very unfortunate, but yet again, we have to bail out the city side. So I'm disappointed in the mayor for not setting up a reserve account, not budgeting. I'm disappointed that we're just going to let it slide. Disappointed the receiver for he's got half the city budget, $65 million, for not setting up a reserve account. Disappointed the receiver for not coming up with even the majority of the money. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, I know how we're going to vote. I already know how we're going to vote. I already get it. I know how you're going to vote. So all this is wait, but I'm glad I'm saying I'm on the record. And now all you guys are on the record. These are hard questions that should have been asked before we take a vote to just tap into stabilization. Mayor, where's the reserve account? Did you even think about it? Receiver, where's the reserve account? This is basic budgeting. I know you didn't ask him that question. I know none of you asked him that. And even if you did, the answer would have been, well, we didn't do it. But this massive lawsuit is pending. I don't know, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry about that. Thank you.
It's fine, Councilor Bartley. You did ask that question at I'm going to respond because I think it was directed at me.
No, they were directed at me. 3 times I was called out by name.
Okay.
And I don't appreciate that. I thought all comments went through the chair. As far as my decision to go along with this, I will reiterate once again, whether someone did their proper planning or someone did not do their proper planning, all right? A situation has been presented to us that is far less devastating than the other possibilities to the city budget. And that's what I'm basing my decision on, not what mistakes someone else may have made. Secondly, I want it to be clear on the record that the incident involved was before Dr. Zreich's term, not during his tenure. If there was some planning he should have done, fine, but I want it on the record that this was prior to his administration. Thank you.
The, Councilor Bartley, you did ask that, I think it might have been at the full city council meeting when we discussed this and sent it back to committee. I did not contact the bond council directly. I didn't contact the mayor directly. I'm not the mayor. I'm not his keeper. But as far as the bond council goes, our auditor and the mayor, the bond council works for the city. And I think her, and I have a lot of faith in what her opinions are, and have a lot of faith in how she approaches things. It's a fair question which we should get directed. The auditor hasn't done it. Well, I'll direct it directly to Cinder and get an answer as to her opinion on using stabilization. I said at the beginning of this discussion, stabilization money is always an issue. We know that, and we understand that. That's part of what the discussion is about this evening. We will get you that answer. It's a fair question. Litigation is the other part of what this is about. It's never easy, I think, for any city councilor when they don't know or don't believe something completely wrong was done to settle it. And yet we're told over and over again, there is a time to settle it. We got attorneys that are sitting on this council that understand that. I work in the court system. I understand it. I work in the criminal part, not the civil part, but I see it on a lot of times on a day-to-day basis. Settling sometimes is the correct or best way out. Maybe not the correct, might not be the most proper way to say it. Tasha, I'm going to say two things because I'm not sure where I am yet, because I'm not, for more than one reason, which I'm not going to discuss this evening. As far as executive session goes, I appreciate what Councilor Leahy says. An executive session is not private forever. Anything we said in executive session can and will come out once we take a final vote. And that's something that I think a lot of people forget. Executive session is not a free-for-all to say what you want to say. It's the purpose of it is, in this case, litigation, to keep the hand of the city who was being litigated against, close to their vest, and that's the purpose of litigation. I count pretty good, Tasha. You need 10 votes for this passage, right? I've said this to you, I've said this to Crystal, I've said it to the mayor. You're down 2 right now, all right? 2 from 13 is 11. You got 2 more you're gonna lose, and this goes away, and there'll be no settling from stabilization. So I was kind of hoping, I'm not sure if we reached out, that is the mayor aware of this meeting this evening?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, because I think, well, I'll talk to the mayor. I think he needs to do some legwork here and make some arguments in favor of if he wants to settle. Councilor Bacon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a few comments, and I don't think I have any remaining questions. I appreciate the information that you have provided. I don't have a concern about using a stabilization for an emergency, which I consider the settlement portion of this lawsuit. However, I am totally and permanently opposed for using the stabilization fund for any operational expenses. And I consider attorney's fees to be operational expenses. So to the extent that the amount in this transfer includes day-to-day operational costs, I find that highly problematic, and I hope when bond counsel is asked about their opinion on it, they will understand what portion is what. Having said that, I know we don't have authority to initiate spending, and I don't think we have authority either to initiate replenishing the stabilization fund. However, as a point of information or a point of question to the committee for further consideration, I could be persuaded to support the use of the stabilization fund if there was also a hand-in-hand commitment to replenish it to the amount of the attorney's fees. I don't know if there is a technical path to accomplish that, but in that situation, I could find myself supportive of it to end the liability to the city. My other comments relative to this situation are more general. To me, it doesn't matter when the incident occurred. The reason the City of Holyoke has a receiver is because the state made the determination that we could not, as a city, adequately manage our school system. So in my mind, the responsibility for planning for this lawsuit was well known to the receiver very early on in his tenure. That's why he's here. And I find it appalling that it's coming to the city side for the bulk of this settlement. The reason we have a receiver, again, is because it was deemed that we can't manage the schools fiscally. We're bailing the schools out now more than I think we ever did in the past. So that's a concern for me. I'm not pointing a finger at a person, but I am pointing a finger at a role and an arena of responsibility. Now, taking that concern and the context further out, we're in the context of discussing $132 million bonding with the promises of all this money that we're going to save. We couldn't plan in 3 years for $500,000. So call me questioning, if you will, on the ability to manage going forward when we're sitting here right now talking about this 3 years later. This just smacks of a total lack of planning, complete lack of planning. So we're going to kick it to the stabilization fund, and next week we're going to be talking about kicking it to the taxpayers, because we can't take the risk to go to a pension obligation bond, because that would be too risky for the city. So we can't do that, but we can go to the taxpayers. We can put the risk on them and just say, you pay it. Just like right now, we're solving our problem by going to the stabilization fund. It's not solving the problem. It's the finger in the dike again. And this is just one more time. This is just a bigger time. There's nothing happening in the city that any of us can reasonably think the next time this happens, it'll be different. And this is what I've been calling for a long time now. We need to have a financial management plan. And when you don't have one, what we're doing right now is what happens. For years, we've had an account where if we don't get our tax revenues in, there's an account in the budget where there's monies available. Remember the whole Macy's thing? And then we got to take in money out of that account. That's the kind of thing we should have for liability. Call it debt stabilization, call it whatever you want. But I'm not seeing any movement in the city in that regard. And something like that has helped us address something like this. Thank you.
Dasha, I believe on the point of Councilor Bacon about, and just to refresh everybody's memories, when we did discuss this at the full city council meeting, in your original request, there is 2 or 3 items for attorney fees that are listed. And the question, not only the way Councilor Bacon asked it this evening, but the question was asked, you don't pay for attorney fees out of this line item. If you're paying, this should be out of the litigation settlement line item. So something's amiss if we're putting money into an account that settles litigation and it can be used for attorney's fees. And then there's Councilor Bacon's point of attorney's fees shouldn't be coming out of stabilization. Is there anything further on that the law department can update us?
No, I was advised to include everything in the request, including the attorney's fees, so I just did what I was advised to do. But I can certainly take the proper steps to change it for the attorney's fees.
Okay, and that original email goes back to March. It's probably a combination of, we do have a new auditor, a combination of others that, probably should have picked up on it before it got to us. But thank you.
Mr.
Mr. Chairman?
If I may.
Councilor Bacon,
Just
a follow-up?
as a follow-up, thank you. I had also requested at the last full council meeting that we receive the request with the 2 arenas separated out, so that they would be 2 separate requests coming in. It would have had to come in as a separate order because we can't change this one. I understand that, but I had been hoping that one was going to come in separated out. But thank you.
Counselor Sullivan?
Yeah, thanks. Just a quick question. On the downside, if we were not to settle, what is the total potential downside if we went to trial and lost on this?
So our exposure in the underlying case is about $2 to $4 million. That's just for damages. That's not including the attorney's fees. If the city loses in the underlying case, the city would be responsible for those attorney's fees. Just a ballpark figure, probably maybe $1 million. They've been working on the case since 2016. And then however many years that it takes to settle. And then in the other case where the lawsuit is a defendant against the insurance company, I'll say give or take our exposure in that case. We would only pay for attorney's fees in that case. So right now, our attorney's fees, let's see, give you an exact number. So up until March, our attorney's fees for the federal court lawsuit for the insurance company sue us was about $40,000. So you figure if that case continues, we're probably looking at another $40,000 just for this year. And then however long that case is going to take as it goes through litigation. So give or take maybe $80,000 a year. So hopefully if that case settles in, well, if that case ends in maybe 2 years, is that $160,000? And I'm probably being conservative with the numbers.
So total exposure is somewhere between 5 and 5.5 million?
Absolutely. So the biggest issue with this is the case where the insurance company has sued the city. If we lose our insurance, so to speak, if we lose the insurance company assisting with this settlement, the city will then be responsible to cover everything. So that's why there's a deadline on this. So our new deadline is May 30th.
I've got it.
So-
You've answered my most basic question.
Okay,
That our
thanks.
total exposure here is somewhere north of $5 million. So to my fellow counselor's point, were the school department and the mayor to be budgeting, it's not for a $500,000 figure, it's for a $5.5 million figure if they were to follow that process. And my point, and what I will still stand by, whether something was done right or not done right, we have a chance right now to end this thing.
Counselor Tomlin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think you answered one of my questions, the May 30th, so that's the deadline for this amount right now.
Yes.
And after that, everything changes. Everything
Yes.
you have to go back to them and talk to them again and
Yes.
file,
So, yep. So on May 30th is the deadline for the case against the insurance company. So on that date, the insurance company and our counsel will report to the court if we're going to go forward. So if we do go forward, the insurance company could take their settlement offer back in the underlying case.
Okay. And the amount here, you said that's the city's portion plus the insurance portion,
Yes.
plus the attorney's fees?
Yes. And I can give you the breakdown. So the settlement amount was $950,000, with $350,000 coming from the insurance company, $150,000 from the school department, and $450,000 from the city.
Okay, so the school department is giving a portion, but about half of what the city's giving.
Yes.
And I understand that, it's a school department, and that seems like they should get the bulk of this, but also that the employees are also employees of the city, school
Yes.
department employees. And like it or not, I mean, we are covered, all employees of the city. I don't think anybody likes taking money out of the stabilization fund, and I've been around for a little while, and we have had lawsuits that there was money for. Some were smaller than this. Seems like a large amount, but my concern is, do we pay this now? Do we pay a lot more later? You know, we could win and still end up paying well over $1 million in this case. And I know what's been going on for a few years. You know, I realize it'd be nice to budget for this, that the mayor or the receiver could budget for this amount, but some things happen, I think, in government, and city government especially, that these things happen that we have to be covered for. My concern also is losing insurance for the city. That could be a very costly price for the city to pay. So it's almost like, and I've said this before, you know, pay me now or pay me later. I mean, and I agree with my colleagues, and this isn't an easy thing to do. I think we should try to have some kind of financial team or financial manager to look at things in the future, because this isn't the only time this is going to happen. This could happen down the road again. But I'm not comfortable in waiting. I'm not comfortable rolling the dice to see if we could win this and pay a lot more money. So even though I'm not crazy about doing this, and I also would like to see what bond counsel has to say about this. And this would really affect the city budget or the city rating. But I feel confident that this is the best way to go, and I will be supporting this tonight.
Yeah.
Councilor Murphy.
Yes, thank you. So I thank you for the breakdown. So we now are in this transfer, we're talking almost 69,000, that is for attorney fees, correct?
Yes.
I mean, I definitely agree with Councilor Bacon in terms of, and I'm almost positive we asked for a transfer that would reflect the litigation part, and then another transfer that would reflect the attorney fees part. And I do think, in order to support this and be comfortable supporting it, that would be something I would encourage the mayor to submit to us prior to our next meeting so that we have an opportunity to review it. The other question I have is, who determined how much the schools would pay?
I'm not sure. That was a conversation that took place prior to my involvement, so I'm not sure how the breakdown of the numbers came about.
I mean, that would be something I would like to know, because, again, yes, they're all city employees, no question about that, but, you know, the incident did occur in the schools. It is, as Councilor Bartley said, they have more than 50% of our budget. And if I'm reading this correctly, if the schools were paying more, we would be taking less out of the stabilization fund because they would be paying out of their standard accounts. And therefore, we could use less stabilization money if, in fact, we just got to the point where we each paid $300,000, and we would be saving $150,000 in the stabilization fund, and the schools would be paying 50% of what the city's cost is, which is about what their budget is, even though the issue was beginning in the school department. So I would strongly suggest two things. Number one, and I agree with what Councilor Sullivan and Councilor Tallman have said about, you know, I don't want to roll the dice either. And we roll the dice and we win, we look great. We roll the dice and we lose, we're in trouble. But, you know, I think the idea of transferring the legal attorney's fees to a separate transfer, the idea of getting the schools to pick up another $150,000, so it's a 50-50 split, and then coming back to us with, if it's out of stabilization, for $300,000 for our litigation part and the school's agreement that they're paying $300,000, and the attorneys are paying or the insurance is paying $350,000. We get it covered. We get it. To my eyes, I would be comfortable voting for that, and I think that would be a much fairer distribution of the fine than what we're getting now, and less burden on the stabilization fund, and again, allowing us to deal with the attorney's fees as a separate entity. So if you can convey that to the law office and to the mayor, that is something, to me, that would make sense. And it doesn't seem to me a logical argument that the school should be paying a quarter, and we're paying 75% of it. Thank you.
Counselor Leahy.
Yeah, you kind of stole my thunder. I was going to go along the same route. And not that I know my place here as a city councilor, and we can't certainly negotiate contracts or settlements. However, having Mr. Zreich in the executive session and having us walk through the different philosophy of why we're paying 75%, and his department's paying 25%, I think would have gone a long way. Once again, I just want to make it known, I too believe in settling cases at times. However, actually, let me put you on the spot here. Tell the public at home why we can't discuss what the case is about, why is this case in front of us, who the plaintiffs are. I just want, so when I'm walking through Stop and Shop, and people are going to ask me, and they're going to ask every one of these counselors here, just put it in your words, why we as a body can't discuss this.
But are you advertising for Stop and Shop?
I was a big fan of Big Y for a while when they're in strike, but now they're off strike. I'm back to Stop and Shop again. So go ahead.
Sure. Okay, so some of it is public knowledge, so I can't speak on that part. So the city was sued because there's allegations of abuse taking place at Peck Middle School between 2011 and 2016. 2016, I believe, is also the year that the school was taken into receivership. I don't remember who said it. Someone asked, why isn't the state or the receiver covering some of the costs? And it's because the date that the plaintiffs are saying that these actions took place was prior to the state taking the school department into receivership. So it would have been during the time that the city was in charge. We are in settlement negotiations. So when a case is in negotiations, a lot of the information is confidential. We wouldn't want to say anything out in the public that could potentially be used against the city later on should this case not settle and we do have to go to trial in either one of the cases.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Bartley.
Just want to make a couple clarifications, and I'm sorry I got a little heated. One thing, the May 30th deadline, that's not the first deadline we've had, Mr. Chairman. So the deadline's been moving. It's an arbitrary target. It's a new deadline. If we didn't pass this now, they'd have another deadline. There'd be another one. Second of all, we make the call from the stabilization. You say rolling the dice. Don't want to roll the dice this time. Okay. So we paid our stabilization. Another plaintiff comes along. Do we pay them? Or do we have the same argument? We don't want to roll the dice. Because another plaintiff's going to come along. And then the same thing's going to happen. Because no one's going to have a reserve account. I mean, these are not arcane budgeting tactics, reserve accounts. These are pretty basic. But, you want to roll the dice, that's fine. But another time's going to come along, and I'll guarantee you the same argument will be made, don't want to roll the dice. Third of all, the receiver started July of 2015. Now, that's on the record. Did not start in 2016. Started July of 15. So let's get that fact out there. To pass stabilization, Mr. Chair, I thought I heard you say 10 votes. I think it's 9 votes, Mr. Chair, but I think that's
The chair stands collected. It's 2/3, which is 9
I think it's
now.
9 votes.
Sorry, Tasha.
So it's, all right, so it's 9 votes. Then I think, though, going back to the larger point about the stabilization and to my other point with bond counsel, Mr. Chairman, if you would entertain this one, not only, and here's a way just to soften what I said earlier, what amount from stabilization could bond counsel tolerate for this situation? I mean, would it be $300,000? Would it be nothing? Maybe it is $450,000. I think that question has to be raised as well. So not only, I'm not saying we could have a sliding scale here, but But is there a number that bond counsel would be comfortable with, where the city of Holyoke doesn't take the ding? We're probably gonna get hit a little bit, but maybe not as bad. I mean, as we all know, our bond rating is super average. So, I mean, the one thing we got going for us, and I'm using air quotes here, is the stabilization fund, Mr. Chair. And this is why we're able to borrow such as we have, at rates that were, somewhat affordable. I'm hearing what Councilor is saying about not rolling the dice and, maybe $4 to $5 million. Well, we don't know that to be true. And we don't know if the deadline is going to change. I'm not even fully aware of all the merits of the case, but maybe there are other plaintiffs that, I don't want to get into the arguments. And Attorney Marshall said it pretty clearly. I mean, when litigation is pending, we're not really even supposed to be talking about it in public session. So, but yeah, here we are. So I guess I would just like to hear a little bit about that. The overall opinion of bond counsel is sort of 450, but if 450 is way out of bounds, maybe there's a lower number. And maybe if that was a number that bond counsel came back and said, listen, City of Holyoke, you'd be okay. I could see me voting for that based upon that opinion. And I heard what the other counselor said. I heard it clearly. Listen, I don't want to pay $5 million, but none of us has a crystal ball on this, including the attorneys. And so I just think we have to get a little firmer ground, Mr. Chair, on her opinion, on Cinder's opinion for the use of stabilization and what effects going forward. And I'm also glad to hear that people are kind of supportive of my notion that this is a Holyoke public school problem. I get it that we're all one city, but those of us in government, we know how the system works. We don't vote on their budget. In fact, the school board doesn't even vote on their budget anymore. The receiver has total control of the budget. And so how'd the receiver come up with the 150? And why isn't it, in the city side? Listen, if it was one of our DPW workers or Holyoke Police Department, we get it. All right, that's on the city side of the government. We get it. That's on us. We own that. But on the school department side, we don't own it. And the receiver should have known that. Now, this case came way before the receiver. I'm not knocking him at all for the merits of the case, so I want to make that clear. I'm not knocking him on that. But he came in for academic and for budgetary reasons. The school department was a cluster bomb for whatever reason. Nobody wants to say any names, and nor do I. But it was not a good situation. And we have a receiver. So, and this is somebody who didn't come in walking off the streets. This somebody came with a great deal of experience, appointed by Mr. Chester and the governor. They didn't just find him, on Indeed.com or whatever, Craigslist. I mean, they researched and they tried to find the best person available with a lot of expertise, and he does have a lot of expertise. But man, this is just like, it's a shortfall, and B, we're not even sure how we got to the number. So I don't know. I think we got to get a little more, just a little more out of Holyoke public school system on this thing, and maybe then I could find a level of comfort, and maybe then we could, get this one off our books and move on. Thank you.
Thank you. Tasha, if I could just weigh in on a couple items, and I think we are ready to give some type of a vote or some type of a recommendation. A lot of good things have been said this evening, have been said prior evenings, and I understand the issues of executive session. But I just want to address a couple of comments so that people know where I'm coming from. On the school budget, the receiver, I get it, the state took over after this incident, so I get that, we're not looking at the liability issue of the state in terms of what happened at the incident. But the budget is ongoing. I see the school budget as part of the overall budget, although it's controlled differently than the rest of the budget. But one difference with the school budget, and I have an opinion, but one difference is And I think we asked for a correct opinion, but is this money considered net school spending? My answer is not, because net school spending is what the city is obligated out of our budget to spend on education, is direct services to the students of the Holyoke Public Schools. It could be used as teachers, could be used in a number of different ways, but this is not benefiting the current student population. So my understanding, it's not net school spending. We still have to come up with net school spending. The mayor's putting together the budget. I'm sure your department's been before the mayor trying to finalize your budget for next year. The school department was meeting today trying to get ready to finalize their budget in terms of next year. And I think we're going to find out that it's not net school spending. Not seeing the proposed line item budget of the schools, and I should have a better handle on this, and I will attempt to look at it. I don't know what's available to use through that budget that would not affect the services to students. So I would just caution, as much as I think and I agree that the schools should take some budgetary responsibilities for this, I just want to caution. I also don't think that the city side of the budget services should be, because of litigation, should be hampered with, and that's why, barring Cinder telling us something different, I think stabilization as a one-time use, emergency, maybe not emergency, but a one-time use type transfer is something that is important, although I would highly suggest that we do get the lawyer's fees out of there. It's important, I think, of what I'm really struggling with on my vote this evening. I think we have to give the city council one more chance to take a final vote. Not sure if it's there, but one more chance to take a final vote before May 30th. And if it's not there, then we'll have to do it May 30th and future discussions under whatever circumstances come up, if that's what the rest of the committee agrees with. But what I'm trying to say is my final vote is going to be based on whether, and I don't know if I've heard enough of whether or not I believe these allegations are true. And that bothers me, because I come from a family of teachers. And I come from, I think, 40 years on this city council of supporting education, not just because of teachers, but because teachers are the front line of our educational process. And without teachers and without support in teachers, you wonder why the schools are in shambles. Because right now, the morale of the Holyoke Public School teacher is at an all-time low, and this doesn't help. Now if the allegations are if there's merit to them and it's true, and settling is the correct thing as the mayor is proposing, I'm okay with that. But I want to know that these allegations are true before we settle, that it's not just a budgetary thing we're settling. It scares the hell out of me, the numbers. It scares the hell out of me that we would, excuse my language, we could lose the insurance backing on some of what the insurance is willing to pay for, although I really believe the insurance should be paying for a lot more. That's what insurance is about. And I just want to hear more about these allegations. That cannot happen in this setting, but that's where I'm coming from. However, with the May 30th deadline approaching, I'll suggest to the members of the committee that we put something in front of the city council to see if there is a final vote ready. We'll get the answer from Cinder, and we'll get the, what's the other question? The legal fees answered, I hope, through the law department and through the auditor themselves. And then I'll check on the net school spending. But I think we got to at least let the city council have a shot at this next week.
Mr. Chairman?
I'm sorry.
Me-
Over here. Councilor Bacon?
Thank you. Just quickly, I just want to clarify that my comments relative to the matter weren't about liability for the alleged incidents, but relative to the budgetary aspects. And then if it is known on the committee, if, for example, the amount did remain in whole, is there any avenue where we can stipulate that the portion that is attorney's fees would be repaid to the fund? Is there any mechanism by which that can be accomplished, or no?
Councilor Bacon, it's a good point. I think we can certainly suggest that. I don't know if we can mandate it, but we can find that out before next Tuesday. Tasha, if you could do it, I will contact the auditor. I'm contacting the auditor on bond counsel and everything anyways, but I'll try and get an answer on that.
So
I hope everybody's gonna be, in whatever we do this evening, in full force next Tuesday, and I'll reach out to the mayor to see if he'll come in and address some of this with us.
And I would just add that I think we have the best opportunity for success if we do have more than this one choice before the full council.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Sullivan?
A couple of times tonight, we've all made a mention of rolling the dice, and one thing I'd like to remind everybody is that when you roll the dice, you always have a chance to win. In this case, we have no chance to win. None at all. If we win, we're going to spend more than the settlement. That's a lose. As far as finding out more about the facts and stuff like that, if I understand everything we were told, that would mean taking more depositions, more legal fees. Back to my point, we're in a lose situation. So my only question left now is, to Councilor McGivern's point and supporting the school teachers, in this settlement, as I understand it, there's no admission of guilt either. It's just a settlement.
Correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
That's why I've asked twice in executive session and once this evening, is have anybody reached out to those teachers and got their side? And the answer is no.
They can't, though.
Answer still no.
Yeah, well, it would be ethical.
Counselor Murphy?
Yeah, I would actually encourage you not to take any action and just send a message that, you know, I definitely think the idea that we're paying counselors' fees out of the litigation account does not make sense. And I strongly believe that the mayor could put enough leverage to have the school department pick up half of the tab. And then they would come in all on May 21st, and I would easily support that. I agree with Councilor Sullivan. I don't want to roll the dice, but I also think it's our obligation to make sure the dice we are rolling have the best chance of coming up lucky. And I think the school department not paying more than 25% to me, that just does not make any sense. And then I definitely agree that the lawyer fee should be taken out, and it could come back to us on May 21st, preferably $300,000 from stabilization to pay litigation. The schools have agreed to pay $300,000, and the attorney's fees come out of some other transfer. Then we don't have to worry about refunding the stabilization fund. And I think that gives us leverage with the mayor. I think if we put it back out there for the 21st as is and it loses, we're in much more jeopardy than we are as it is now. That's just my opinion.
Let me offer Plan B. David, you got a couple of DGRs scheduled next couple Mondays, and
Yeah, it does. Sorry about that.
No. I just they're legit, right?
Yeah.
If this committee is
We have a
willing-
DGR on Monday, Joe,
yes, I saw that.
13th, and we have another one
23rd.
in May,
Yeah.
before the next city council meeting.
Okay, we tried to get this meeting in on this past Monday, it didn't work. So let me just state this quickly, and then we need to move on. Plan B is if this committee is willing, next Wednesday, as you know, we received probably close to a dozen items last night from the full city council to the committee.
Your orders.
A lot of them need to be addressed, I agree. If we meet next Wednesday, we could hold this over to next Wednesday and see if some of these questions could be better answered, and then talk about giving the full city council on the 21st, as Councilor Murphy pointed out. 21st is the next full city council. So that's Plan B, if you wish.
I think it's a good idea.
Councilor Dahlman?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I know it's going to be a busy night. I think it'd be good to get some things answered, and we'd have it ready for the next meeting. But if we could take that up, maybe the first item, and have the people try to get the answers, and maybe have some of the people in here. I mean, it's great to have all these ideas about the school committee paying some and separating something. But my concern still is, if we don't do that and we don't get the vote on this to transfer this out, what's the long-term cost going to be to the city over the years? So But I think it's good to see if we can get the questions, still give us some time. And I understand it's been a moving target, May 30th. I mean, we've had it, probably March, we had it last year. So, but when you start moving the target up, then costs keep on going up too. So that's something we got to realize. But I'm okay with that Plan B for next week.
I make a motion to table it to our next meeting.
Second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to table to our next meeting. It will be on the agenda. I will put it on item number 1, Ryan, if the mayor shows up.
And with those questions, hopefully answered.
And well, let me, that was tongue in cheek. Let me suggest this, that the purpose of next Wednesday will be to get answers to our questions, not to redo the whole discussion, because
Right.
we're gonna have at least 12 other items on the agenda.
Yeah, right.
So just for the sake of time, our intent would be just to receive answers, take a vote to get it to the full, if we want, to the full city council on the 21st.
And you're still going to try to contact bond counsel for that night?
Either way, yes.
For an answer for
Whatever
the-
we do tonight, we will do that.
Okay.
Yes. Fair enough? Fair enough? On the motion to table, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Tasha, thank you. We have one more item, which we were prepared to do at 1 minute before 7, but someone was 3 minutes late. I won't say who. Marcus is so important, Mayor Puda. I just thought that, he would have been here on time, because that was all planned. All planned by himself. Item number 6 is introduced by Councilor Sullivan. Honorable City Council approve the recommendation of the CPAC and award a grant of $120,000 to Voice Esperanza. Funds are to be used for the interior renovation of 123 Pine Street. I'm just reading the order. I think there's a little bit more to it than that, but Marcus, Mimi, Elaine, gentlemen, please come in
Motion to take the
if
table
you're
off.
comfortable. Elaine, I don't know, are you
Discussion?
comfortable joining us?
Sure.
It's good to have Terry Murphy back, isn't it?
We can share a mic. We can take this one if it's closer. Is that all right?
Okay, for the purpose of getting this discussion going, I'll just look at the maker of the order, who is also our representative on the body, and to Mr. Marrero to tell us the presentations of how you want to do this evening. The city council did ask that we would review this in the finance committee meeting, and they're awaiting our recommendation for our next meeting scheduled for May 21st. Mike?
I think it's fine, we turn it over to the committee.
Fair enough.
Good evening.
Marcus, you want to take the lead?
Good evening. Sure. So this is the first time I'm sorry, I'm going to defer for a second unless the committee wants to say anything. I'll stop it. Okay, all right. just in
I
case.
had asked the chair and the
Okay.
members if they wanted us to wait until you got here. I don't mean to be jumping over or touching anybody's toes here, but we welcome everybody. And quite frankly, we thank you for the hard work you've done this entire year, because as you know, the full city council has accepted, and I'm not saying they won't accept this, every recommendation with little discussion, represented by Mike Sullivan at the full city council level, liked your recommendations and endorsed them very quickly, which, as most of us know, doesn't always happen, but it was nice. But this evening, we do want to hear more about this, and I think there are some questions.
Sure. Well, thank you for the opportunity to expand on the project. The project is the rehabilitation of 123 Pine Street. It is a 4-story building near the intersection of Dwight and Pine Street. Between the building and Dwight Street, there are two parcels. One of which the redevelopment authority already has site control over, as well as the building. And the second of which the redevelopment authority will be closing on the purchase through a transaction with the owner. The site, so I'll talk about the 123 Pine site, which is those 3 parcels, the 2 vacant pieces of land and the building. are on the urban renewal plan that, as you know, was approved in late 2012 by the city and early 2013 by the state. So it is a project that we've been trying to see how to put together since that time. It is a historically significant building. It is the first building of its type to be built in Holyoke. It represented an upgrade for the type of housing from tenement housing closer to the mills to multifamily housing up on the hill. So it represented, or further up towards the hill. So it represented a material improvement in housing for some of the first generation workers in the city of Holyoke, and you would see that in the names that are there. You would recognize them all as Irish names. So with that, a lot of time has passed, and I honestly don't even know how many years, but certainly throughout my tenure, and I've heard from CPA members that have had a longer tenure in this community than I have, that this building has been vacant for many, many years. So as the council is fully aware, buildings that have been vacant for many years undergo significant depreciation. And at the time that you want to rehabilitate them, they end up being a complete gut rehab job. And that's very expensive. So that is the name of the game of rehabilitation in the city of Holyoke. You have I'm sorry, should I stop?
No, I'm sorry, it just,
Who owns it?
Who owns the building?
is it under the control of the redevelopment authority, or is it?
The building and one of the lots is currently recorded under the city of Holyoke. A couple of years ago, it was approved to transfer to the redevelopment authority.
Okay, all right, so the reason I was asking Joe is because I'm looking at pictures of it, and I'm thinking to myself, are we gonna spend that much money? I thought it was a private developer, like slum landlord. I was like, wait a second, we're gonna fix up a building that somebody else owns. But that's not the case.
No, so the city currently owns it. The redevelopment authority will record it under its name and transfer it as part of the development deal to a private developer, which in this case is the Valley Opportunity Council, which is why Stephen Huntley is sitting to my left. Because I assume there are going to be questions about the development per se that he'll be better suited to answer.
Yeah, so say if we taxed all the homeowners in Holyoke, and we came up with a large sum of money. Now we're gonna rehab the building, and we're just gonna give the building away?
So the question is, should we be getting more for the building?
No, the question is, we tax the taxpayers, we're gonna fix up a building, then we're gonna give the building away?
No, we're not fixing the building and giving it away. We are selling the building in its current condition, which has a negative value. So where I was in my explanation was, buildings that have been vacant for many years, as you know, requires X amount of money to rehab, but the income that it can generate from rents, whether it's commercial or residential, like in this case, would not cover the cost of the rehabilitation. So that's where subsidies come in a whole host of forms. What we're pursuing, what we have pursued successfully with the $30,000 of historic preservation funds that the City Council approved and the CPA approved, thank you to both. And what we're pursuing here and discussing tonight is $120,000 in community housing. So we put in a request for $150,000 total, and we broke it down in two of the three silos that CPA can fund, right? So what we're proposing is that we would sell the building, and then Valley Opportunity Council would use the $150,000 in total. Tonight we're talking specifically about the 120 because it belongs to the silo of community housing. VOC would use that money and leverage it with other subsidy streams plus their own equity and debt service to then develop the building. So the city isn't doing the development, the redevelopment authority isn't doing the building. Valley Opportunity Council is doing the development, and they can speak to how they're going to structure that along with another building that they're working on.
And is the VOC, do they pay tax, would they pay taxes on this?
Steve Huntley can answer that, but yes.
We pay tax on every building we own in the city of Holyoke,
I'm just asking about this one, please.
including this one. When we own it, we would.
Okay, and it's a residential tax, right?
Yes.
Yes. We do pay the commercial rate up the street for 300 High Street and many other properties as well. It's close to $100,000 a year we pay in taxes to the city.
So this is the one that's in front of us.
Can I,
Hey, Marcus, are you? Okay, are you done?
I just want to interject one sentence, one sentence, that's all into.
Careful.
Yeah, that, for information's sake, the 120,000 or the 150,000, depending on which one, it's only 10% of what the actual project costs. And we're going to be putting a building back on the tax rolls. And that's basically why we voted for it. 10% of the project.
Also, if I could interject, Mr. Chair.
Councilor Sullivan?
Yes.
The thing that really sold me on it also was if the city, if we didn't have someone like VOC in this program in place, the cost of the city to demolish this building would be in excess of $120,000. Also, the thing that's vital on this is if they're unsuccessful in obtaining the rest of the funds, we don't lose any of the $120,000. It goes back into the general fund.
No, not the general fund. our
I mean,
fund.
the CPA fund, yes.
Yeah.
How we doing?
This is great. I'd rather do it popcorn style.
All right, let's talk about popcorn. Redevelopment Authority, we've adopted the plan, the Redevelopment Authority has worked on it, now they're working with the CPA monies and folks in charge of CPA monies. I wasn't sure when Councilor Leahy asked me the question, I apologize for interrupting, but it is an important question, but I do remember early on, right after or right before we adopted the plan for the Redevelopment Authority, that we did a tour down to White Street. I remember because you led the tour and you told us about right in those lots, the gardens, across the street. You told us about what was happening on 2 vacant lots. And as we walked down to White Street, I told you what they were used as 30 years ago.
Yeah, that increased the tour length about an hour or two.
Yes.
Yeah.
I gave you the joke, the neighborhood version, and I just don't remember 123 Pine Street being in that plan, but that's why I couldn't answer Councilor Leahy directly. But what I didn't tell you on that day that we toured, including that I was born, Elaine would know this and Mike would know this, in Providence Hospital, and everybody said, well, Providence Hospital is on Riverdale Road, Joe, why are you talking about that? Jerry knows, the original Providence Hospital was right across from the post office.
That's right,
And
that's where I was
one of
born.
the second to last babies that was born there.
Yeah.
Second to last years it was open, let's put it that way. 123 Pine Street, I had some great friends that grew up in that building. It was an incredible building when I was a young person going into high school, going into college. I was dismayed when I saw shutters on it, one day. I just couldn't believe it because Steve, I'm sure you know, the woodwork is incredible, the building itself, the apartments this wasn't just a tenement building. This was
Right.
a building that attracted the foremen and the
Right.
people in the paper mills that were middle management and up one. It was quite the building, and there was a number of people I knew in that area, and I'm very familiar with the building. And I want to say one thing publicly and then stop talking because I think someone else I jumped in on. Valley Opportunity Council, and this has nothing to do with this evening, I want to say thank you for the facade on High Street.
Oh, sure.
And I apologize because I've been in the back of my mind saying that publicly has to be recognized as one of the nicer facades done recently. A lot of good ones have been done over the years on High Street. And that to me is an investment, by the Valley Opportunity Council, but an investment in the city, and it looks great.
Thank you.
And we appreciate the work that you do. All right. Councilor Bartley.
Oh, wait, Marcos, are you finished with your report? Because I think we kind of jumped in and.
I can be, yeah. I mean, I'd rather answer your questions than just ramble on. So.
Could I offer 2 sentences to just try and give a...
Sure.
So the idea here is the Voces de Esperanza project, we took over, Nueva redeveloped it, they fell on hard times, the property wasn't well managed, that money has already been approved, we appreciate it. When we applied for a tax credit a year ago, there was 2 pieces of feedback. One was there was no city money, check, thank you, last meeting. The other was they'd appreciate us adding units to it. This is where we check that box. What's interesting is there's 38 doors that are generating tax credit money. We don't need a ton of the tax credit money. It's not 38 dilapidated units. It's 38 that need some small, relatively small kitchens, bathrooms, things of that nature. That's at VOCES. So what that does is it generates more tax credit money that we're applying for, that we'd be able to apply to this. So that's why this works. And it wouldn't work on its own. It wouldn't work as a standalone. It works combined with a property that we're able to do.
Thank you. David?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, Marcos, if you have to jump in, just jump in. The way I understand the CPA is there's four buckets we can put it in. I heard what Marcos put together as the two of them. I gotta be frank, I don't think I would have ever dreamed that 123 Pine Street would have been designated historically significant. I'm thinking that there probably isn't a marker to that effect, whether it's on the National Register or the Massachusetts Register or even recognized by the Holyoke Historical Commission. So that doesn't really motivate me to support this. The other part is the creation of affordable housing. Steve, through the chair to Steve. Steve, how many units are going to be created?
There'll be 8 units in that building.
Okay. All right. So that doesn't motivate me either, Mr. Chairman, to vote for this. You're talking, a building that may or may not be. I mean, listen, there's historically significant, and I guess it's in the eye of the beholder, and I'll grant that. But that's a stretcher case to me. And then 8 units of housing, come on. But then I am going to tell you why I'm going to support it in a second. I mean, I don't buy those two arguments, but that's that. Why I do buy this is, one, I appreciate the very creative use of leveraging funds. I don't even think that was considered, Mr. Chair. In fact, I don't remember it being discussed once because the CPA really ran to the DGR committee. I don't remember that being discussed once. So I have to compliment the chair and the committee for a creative, sounds like a creative use of CPA funds to develop this. And we know these buildings are, and we heard what my fellow counselor said. I shouldn't use names ever, but we heard my fellow counselor said about demolition costs. So we know that those are probably pretty accurate. But I'll tell you the real reason why I do support this is because I have tremendous faith in Steve Huntley. I have tremendous faith in VOC. I know the kind of work that they do. I have, not firsthand, but at least secondhand experience reviewing their books at one point. I'm very confident in their business model. I'm very confident in their dedication to the City of Holyoke. I think that must have gone a tremendously long way. I'm wondering, I'd like to hear what the vote was in the CPA committee on this, based upon the argument, but with historically significant and affordable housing created, I wouldn't know what the vote was, but I would like to hear the vote, and so if somebody would disclose that after I'm done, I'd appreciate it. And actually, I would appreciate seeing minutes of the CPA committee, because I don't think we've had minutes sent our way. I don't remember minutes being, I know they were sent once, but I can't remember minutes coming through the clerk's office to the city council, and we've asked for those several times in open meeting.
They're online. They're online. You can go right to our website.
Yeah, Mayor, and I appreciate that, Mayor. A lot of stuff's online, and respectfully, a lot of times, if it's an arm of the city government, it should be filed with the city clerk, and it should come before the city council. You were a city councilor for 11 terms, so I feel like minutes should come. Should come to city council.
It's not in the legislation, it's not in any rules for us to do that, but we'll be happy to do that.
Well, we've asked for it, it's been agreed to.
Not to us, not to me.
We've asked for an administrative assistant and our representative to the CPA.
Nobody mentioned it to us.
Well, at any rate, I don't want to get off.
That's fine, we'll be happy to do that.
Yeah, well, it'd be nice. I think, that way we could hear what's going on, and
Sure.
when you send it, and if you put them online anyhow, why don't you send a copy to the clerk and send it to the counselors?
Sure.
I mean, I don't think that's a heavy lift.
Nope, we'll do it.
Okay, all right, well, there we go, accomplished something tonight, thank you, Madam, yeah, thank you, Mayor, you're always right on point. But I do have a lot of faith in VOC and Mr. Huntley, and I think for that reason, and my fellow counselor, who shall not be named, for all the work he's done, because I'm very confident in his leadership on the CPA committee and the way he presents it. So for those reasons, Mr. Chair, I would support this.
Thank you. Councilor Murphy?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely in favor of rehabbing buildings, and if we're not rehabbing them or we're not gonna use them, then let's tear them down, let's do something else. But I do have a couple of, how long has the building been vacant? An idea?
We think that it's been vacant for about 25 years.
5 years, okay.
There was some discussion of it last night, and no one had the actual formal date, but it's a long time.
Okay. And so I'm assuming, because we're talking $150,000 a unit here. 8 units and 1.2 million. I know we're only talking 120,000 here, but the total cost of the project. So I'm going to make a couple of assumptions. Number one, it was in pretty dilapidated shape on the inside and really is going to be gutted or primarily gutted, although some of the woodwork that I've heard, I'm assuming we're trying to preserve some of that.
We will preserve everything we possibly can, but it will ultimately essentially be gutted.
Okay. And 2 other questions, and I like things renovated, and I like apartments, and I also, and with the exception of the former mayor being a little older than me, I won't tell anybody. Hey, I looked at your birth certificate. But, and we've known each other a long time. But, I grew up in an apartment building, and that was well kept and affordable. And I know we're providing subsidies here. And one of the things I really would like to see us do is to really make it where people can afford it with very limited subsidies. So, I know we're putting money up front. You're sounding like you're getting tax credits to do some other things. So I would really hope that when this project is done, that we try to make a rent that someone in the $30,000, $40,000 a year range could afford without having significant governmental subsidies. And I think the more we can do that, again, that brings economic diversity. It also, I think, removes a stigma that people have, that people on subsidies are taking advantage. And I think if that can be done, I think that would be great. But I'm a strong advocate of rehabbing. I can remember when demolition started taking place in the 70s and in the 80s that I kept saying, let's fix it. I can remember the Battleship, and there was 200 units and trying to fight to get money to fix those units up. And then back then it was 200 units. It was $10,000 a unit, and we couldn't get it funded. And they tore down 18 of those 20 buildings. So. And luckily, 2 people decided they could do it on their own. So I'm definitely in favor of that. And, I'm also going to let you know, Steve, that I've got an order in DGR that to try to revitalize Churchill. And I had you as part of the invitation on that because I want to work with all the Housing Authority, Holyoke, Nueva, Valley Opportunity, and any other parties that are interested so that we're not leaving vacant lots or boarded up buildings. We're actually going to take some action. Who's going to do it? Let's get a head player in that case, and let's move. So I do appreciate what you're doing. And again, I do hope that you can, and you can answer this if you can, that you can keep rents as affordable as possible with as limited amount of governmental subsidies.
So that's absolutely our goal. The majority of the folks that live in our units have jobs, are working, are doing their best to make ends meet, and the subsidies are very limited. It's our population, our tenants are different than what the Housing Authority tenants are. They pay a rent that's set. They pay a rent that, for a 3-bedroom is somewhere between $1,000 and $1,300 a month, depending on if utilities are included, heat's included, et cetera, et cetera. And these will be 3 bedrooms. So there's real money. You have to make 40,000 for, you know, a single mom, or, well, I guess being 3-bedroom, there'd be maybe a mom and 2 children, a boy-girl type of thing, or maybe a couple and 2 children. That's our population. That's who we serve. That's the majority of our tenants.
So are these 5 or 6 rooms?
So that's up for debate.
Okay. Okay, so what is the debate leading us to? 5 or 6?
So our architect tells me that they ought to be 2 bedrooms, but I've looked at them, I've walked them, and I believe they ought to be 3 bedrooms. So that's the debate that's going on right now. There are 3 rooms that have closets that could be classified as a bedroom. One's separate by the kitchen, and 2 of them are clustered by the living room. So,
Okay, so is it a 5-room apartment? Whether you decide on 3 bedrooms or 2, is it a 5-room apartment?
5 rooms, not counting the kitchen.
Okay, so 6 rooms.
So it would be 6 rooms with a kitchen, yes.
Okay. See, and I grew up in a 6-room apartment, and we had 3 bedrooms, so I'm with you, 3. Thank you.
Thank you.
But you know, how many kids the Irish put in the bedroom?
At least
My case, they put me on the roof.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Counselor Dahlman.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks, Steve, for coming down, and Counselor Sullivan for our work with this and the committee. I've watched it several times on TV. I don't get down to the meetings, but I see how the meetings go. And sometimes your meetings are longer than our meetings, but they're very interesting and well run. And Steve, on this project, what is the timeline about once you get the funding and started?
So we will send a letter of inquiry. We believe it's going to come out this November. We believe we'll be invited in to apply because we were turned away last November for 2 reasons, which we've accomplished. We apply in somewhere around March. We're awarded sometime in the summer of 2020. We believe once the award starts, we'll move quick and start construction. Move quick is probably 6 months away. So I would hope, ideally, we'd be about 2 years away from construction.
Okay. And
Did I do that math right?
Pretty good, 2021, yeah, okay. So, and once you get the construction started, what is the time frame for that about, once you start?
For that project, it might be closer to 6 months.
6 months.
You know, and depends on the season and if we can get started and get the exterior done before winter and things of that nature.
Right.
So, yeah, I would think around 6 months.
Okay.
Especially because the majority of the units are left. So we move people, we bang those out, we move them back, we move, you know.
Right, yeah, I'm very much in favor of projects like this, and like my colleague, Councilor Murphy, about taking buildings, trying to rehab them instead of taking them down, and putting them on the tax rolls. I mean, that's ideal for a community like Holyoke, and we have several of those, and I know there's several in the lower wards that we have to look at. But I think if any buildings we get that we can take care of and rehab and put back in the tax rolls and have people live, you know, in a decent apartment, is really a really big plus for the city of Holyoke. So very much in favor of this.
Thank you.
I'd just like to echo my support, and because my questions have been answered without being asked, Marcus. I think that's what you call popcorn style. But you know, CPA is something that, you know, is to some people is controversial. To others, it's important if it's used correctly. I think the people who are paying it are going to feel more comfortable about the way the money is being used. To date, as I said earlier, the projects that have come forward have been exactly what I think the average person sees as good projects for CPA. And you guys can correct me, but I know in the formula there's a percentage that has to go into housing of the grants that comes in itself. I can't say my fears have been calmed completely by Valley Opportunity Councils. You know, we're working class families that need an apartment, that need some help. This is perfect. On the tax rolls, right now we're getting 0. And Mimi, I think you're right. It's been 20-something years. And if you, Marcus, if you could, I'll call them tomorrow, but the assessors can provide us with the card, when it was taken, and you know, what the taxes were owed and all that stuff. Not that matters, because the donut is the donut. We're getting nothing right now. And we got a boarded up building that Councilor Leahy Googled, mapped it here, and It's something where, I've already voted for the redevelopment plan, I took the tour of the area, I think the whole area plan, there's much more going on. You know, there's several connected lots that the redevelopment authority is looking at, right up to the post office. And I think the plan itself is still a solid one. And I think these are the steps that we need to take to get that plan in place and to get it, to get it completed. But my questions are answered. I'm fine. Is there any other discussion? Councilor Leahy?
Yeah, thank you. And I was going to go on that tour, but I only had about 9 hours that day. And I knew it was going to be a 12-hour tour with Joe telling stories. Just like this was supposed to be a 30-minute meeting.
My tour part was at the end of the guide, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't interrupt Marcus at all, but all of a sudden, everybody just started listening to me and not Marcus.
It's your charisma. But I do want to say that I did go through the website. You have a very good website, but there's no minutes on your website. So I'm not sure where the minutes are located.
Brian,
I wanted to let Councilor Bartley
where
know
are
that,
minutes?
but
I'm not sure who put them on the website. I know they're all on already.
They're on the what?
I have no idea. I never put anything on the website.
No, I mean, but where are the minutes? Are they?
I have them saved. They're also archived within, I believe so. I can send them to the committee.
So they're not online anywhere?
I would not know that.
Okay,
they're not on the
sorry
website.
about
That's
that.
all
I always thought they were.
I just lost my train of thought. I feel like you, Marcos, now. So anyway, having all said all that, I do the good questions and good answers, and I will be voting to support this tonight. Thank you.
Councilor Murphy?
Yeah, just and as I heard you say, it's about 2 years before we're talking construction. So what are we doing to make sure that there's no further damage?
So
The roof.
Yeah, so we actually coordinated with the building department and Jose, who's the demolition supervisor. We did take a tour of the roof. One of the areas of concern was the top of the chimney. The masonry around the bricks had eroded significantly. So so we took down part of the chimney and just orderly put the stuff to the side so that it didn't punctuate the roof. There's a couple of openings that he took care of. Nothing permanent, but the idea was just to stop the entry of water through windows and stuff like that. So yeah, we're monitoring it. It's an asset still in the way that it is. It's has negative market value, but it's an asset because it's still rehabable. So
Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure that, all right, we got something ready to go, and then we leave it there for 18 months, and we find out, oh, we can't do that because we don't have this anymore. Thank you.
Confirmed.
I make a motion to confirm this.
Second, Councilor Sullivan?
Did you want to vote first, or?
No.
I know we're going
Once we vote, we're done.
I know, we're going to adjourn quick, so I wanted to get one.
Councilor Sullivan? I recognize you.
I just wanted to take this moment to let the public know what a tremendous job the CPA committee did over the past year. A lot of tough decisions and a lot of, especially the thought process that went into everything. And I think this is one example of it that's come before us here tonight. And to let the committee know that also, if you haven't heard already, last night, the entire committee has been invited in for a session with the ever humble and wonderful and caring Public Service Committee and their chairman to have a discussion of the year's activities and how it went and about the thought process.
Okay, we'll bring our minutes.
I'll make a minute of that.
Is there anything else from the committee, DOC, Marcus?
I just want to say one quick thing, that our project manager, Amy Landau, she's fantastic, and she has helped us tremendously do all this work. And she has done what Mike has in front of him. Is that the latest version, Mike, that she put out? Could you make a copy for all the
I
committee?
can't, it ran me out of ink making the 4 copies I brought.
He doesn't know how to hit black.
Oh, I mean the
white
full,
ink, he
the
hit
full
colored.
city council before they vote on it to, next Tuesday night. Other than that, that's.
I have a copy, Ryan, if you could make
Okay.
copies, make sure everybody gets one, please. It's attached to the order.
Okay, thank you.
Good point.
Yes.
Anything else? Chair will entertain a motion?
Motion adjourned.
No, first we got a vote. Oh,
I did make a motion.
motion made and seconded.
I made
Second.
All those in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Motion to adjourn till next
Second.
Wednesday. All those in favor? Any, motion to
very much,
adjourn.
guys.
All those in
Appreciate it.
favor? Any
Thank you.
opposed? So moved.
Thank you very much. All right.
Right.
Good meeting.
That's, next week. I think that's.